Hello everyone. In this video, I want to talk about how we can create content that we are confident about and excited to share. This means generating good ideas and being able to execute on those ideas with confidence. The first thing I want to talk about is learning what actually lands. What does it mean to actually create content and share words that actually land? This is fundamental, and I think many people actually have it backwards. So that's the first thing I'll talk about. The second area I'll discuss is the resonance gap, because if you create content that doesn't feel relatable to you or to other people, then even if you say great words, they don't really hit for the viewer. And that brings me to the last thing that I want to talk about, which is the 3 key inputs so that you can actually put this into practice and create that content that you feel confident about creating. So first, I want to understand what actually lands when you make content, what makes it feel confident. Most people think they need to obsess over the speaking skills or the right mental frameworks so that they can speak and create confidently. But this is a horribly, horribly wrong misunderstanding, because I've created thousands of videos, and for many of them, I had to do hundreds of takes, and my body was tight, my breath was shallow, and my mind was in utter chaos. The real culprit was disconnect internally. And when I resolved that, my confidence skyrocketed. So in this video, instead of addressing physical techniques, I want to address the real problem going on internally, because that is the root of the issue. See, confidence, or whatever you want to call it, is really nothing but a side effect. If you're speaking theoretically about problems that you're not deeply connected to, how can there be a sense of gravity in the words that you speak? Tony Robbins can pack an auditorium with hundreds of thousands of people. Yet if somebody else says the exact same words, literally nobody cares. If it was just about the words that we said, we'd have a lot more Tony Robbins. And his words hit like a bullet because they are spoken from something real. Most people speak from the teeth. Authentic creators speak from the heart. And what kills this authentic sense of confidence is actually this internal confusion. Because if you think about it, if you want to make a key for a door, you cannot do that unless you completely understand what the lock needs. So when you feel crystal clear as to who you're talking to and what you're solving for them and how to deliver your message, then it hits. It lands because you create the perfect key. So instead of forcing confidence, make it inevitable. This means clearly pinpoint who are you talking to, what problem are you solving, how can you deliver a solution in the style that works best. Now, this is the part where I tell you, okay guys, go journal, answer some questions, and think about this, and contemplate on your niche and your who and what your audience is, right? Well, I'm not going to say that, because I'm going to guess that you've actually done plenty of that already. I'm going to guess that you actually have a pretty productive routine, you have great habits, and you've already spent a lot of time thinking about how you can make better content, yet that hasn't gotten you anywhere. Instead of burdening you with even more information, let's just make a fundamental change in perspective, because a wise person once told me that awkwardness on camera and confusion about what you're creating is really coming from feelings that we aren't willing to feel, because it's around people that we can really understand what we need to say and how to deliver that. And that means confronting the feelings involved with actually talking to people. So let's use social media to be social, because when we are decisively solving problems and understanding what people need, then we stop sucking ourselves into endless mind spirals and going nowhere. Now, I'm talking about a radical immersion, not a couple of spontaneous online connections. I mean genuinely trying to understand and solve problems so that you can share the solutions that really hit for people. Without this fundamental interest in other people, it is impossible to close the resonance gap that is blocking our confidence. So what is the resonance gap? That's what I will touch on now. This is the resonance gap that is blocking your confidence, because without a sense of resonance and connection to what people really need to hear, then how can we create the right key? We can't be confident. Someone just got punched somewhere in the world. Do you care? No, you don't care at all, because it doesn't relate to you and your lived experience. But let's say, however, you've spent years becoming a masterful musician, blood, sweat, and tears. You know the ins and outs of this journey. So one day, a young little boy asks you, "Hey, I want to take up music, but I don't really know where to start." Well, if you saw this, you'd probably be extremely invested in helping this person. Why? You see yourself in their story. You are inspired with countless ideas because you deep down relate. This means it is important to find people you relate to and can connect with so you really speak to them. This way, when you record content, you can speak from experience instead of from theory, and more importantly, you'll actually want to create the content, which means your energy is infectious. So, this leaves us with the three fundamental inputs that I want to dissect in this video. This is practical, this is not just information. Concrete feedback cycles, this is the first thing I want to get into, and it's probably the most important part of the video. What is a feedback cycle? This is a feedback loop. It's where you take on the role of the contributor, the consumer, and the learner. What do I mean by this? So think about games, think about dance. When you are dancing with somebody, for example, you take a step, and then they take a step. And then in response, you take a step. So there's an input, there's an output, and there's a response. You move, they move, response. It's all game, it's a dance. We gotta be dancing. So the problem is if we're recording videos on our own, endlessly iterating inside our own void, it's like playing chess with no one or dancing with no one, right? Other than our own mind. This leads to a shallow understanding of the problem we are trying to solve. We lack nuance, we lack depth, we can't really relate. The result of feedback loops is actually subtraction. It is clearing noise. How does this work? When you engage in feedback loops, you are putting in some sort of input, you're contributing. Maybe you're contributing speech or a post or a YouTube video, and then you're getting feedback and reiterating. And what this means is that you're hacking away at the imperfections because you're iterating. You're putting things out there. This is exactly what's going on with a famous sculptor like the marvelous Michelangelo. I saw the angel in the marble and I carved until I set him free. So in the feedback loop, it's constant progress. People give you criticism, good. You contribute a post and nobody responded or feel like it sucked, good. So that's the point with feedback loops. What are the most crucial feedback loops for you? It's probably these things: comments, calls, and content. Let's start with comments. And to leave comments, we actually need to be part of a community. And so you can't leave comments without other people. So if you need help choosing a community you love, I linked a video. You can check it out. And I talk about exactly how you can find a community that you want to contribute to and be a part of. So with comments, this is crucial for gathering clarity to form the right ideas. When you leave comments, you start to be around people and sense the vibe of the community. And when you do this, you start to detect gaps. You see that, oh, people are making posts about productivity and... Oh, there's lightning. Hold on. Where was I? You start to sense the vibe. You detect gaps. Maybe you notice that people are making posts about productivity or philosophy, and you're like, hey, they're missing like this key point. And this means you start to spot your opportunities and see where your experience and your knowledge can help resolve these gaps. And this gives you insight as to what problems you can solve, which means, hey, you have content that you feel passionate about creating. It also displays the kind of style you want to use, because when you sense the vibe of a community, you'll notice that they like to use certain words or reference different images. When other people start to respond, you continue that feedback loop, and then this is how you reveal your edge, your interests, your superpowers. And really, I'm spending the most time on comments because this can inspire the ideas of what you'd love to create. There's also calls. These help you get more nuance in problems and go more deep on like what people actually need help with. And it's just a more sensitive situation where you can attach a face to what you're recording. And this has helped me a lot because now when I'm recording, I can kind of reference like a face or a vibe that I really want to touch, because that's what happens over a call. Freezing up when recording would usually happen for me because I would just lose an emotional connection to this idea of who I'm actually communicating to. And we practice this, building this muscle when we are on calls. So that's calls. Let's talk about content. This is a huge feedback loop because you're posting to a wider group. You don't need to read that. It's not important. Content is just basically a bigger feedback loop opening. And yeah, okay, cool. Inspirational. I need to make this more concise. It builds quality like courage, persistence, and humility. Cool. Now, if you have a big audience, then great, because you can post a video and then people comment because you have followers. That starts a feedback loop. But if you have no audience, no one's going to comment on your freaking videos, which means you need to do that part manually. And to do that, you have to share your videos with your friends. You have to send them a DM or a text and be like, hey, like, I'm working on this. What do you think? Or you can just make a post to a community and get like a little bite-sized bit of feedback to see like how people are resonating with your ideas. Now we've talked about feedback loops. Let's now talk about how we can lean into our strengths, because everybody is a genius. But if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing that it is stupid. And guys, you're not stupid. You simply need to locate your edge. Some people have a great voice. Some people are great with technology. Some people are great at art and structured presentations or whatever it is. So many of us beat ourselves up for not doing things a certain way. School, education, modern education systems have done this very well. But in reality, what kids are usually being punished for is simply their strengths, and they can lean into that. For me, for example, I used to post gaming highlights, and I liked editing, so I decided to do my videos differently. I made my videos more cinematic. Most people were making these basic highlight videos, and I decided to do cinematic edits, and that got me a lot more views because it was authentic to me, and it really touched people a lot more because of that. So if it feels impossible to record to the camera without a script, then make it fun and find a way to like resonate with what you're actually saying, which is what goes back to the feedback loops. But if it's not authentic, then it can't be fun. And of course, recording without a script is just going to feel like you're in the middle of the ocean. But if you make it fun and you talk about lived experience, then it's much easier to be authentic. So make it saucy and try out different strategies. I'll talk about that more in a bit. Right now, the next point is to cross-pollinate, because this is a huge way to elevate your content. Let's look at these three things, okay? You got a picture here, you got a picture here, and you got a picture here. Look at this and tell me, what is the connection between these things? Okay? I have no idea. That's for you to figure out. However, when you breed these seemingly unrelated worlds together, you create magic. So somebody who explores a little bit about technology, explores a little bit about history, explores a little bit about this culture and that culture, then when they create content, they're combining these different worlds together, and it gives them all these unique angles and perspectives, and the style that they create with and what they create just is fun. It's new, it's creative. Cross-pollinate different worlds together, different industries, because you never know, maybe learning about beekeeping could be the key to creating that next YouTube video. Next, be different. I'd prefer to wear nice clothes while recording, but no one else seems to be doing that. I want to edit my videos, but everyone's making these talking head recordings, so I don't know. I'd love to play chess and make videos about that, but nobody would watch that, right? Nonsense. Who said you have to make videos a certain way? Who said you can't use SpongeBob analogies if you want to convey your message that way? SpongeBob, you see, this guy understands that letting yourself be different helps you to be authentic instead of just trying to force yourself to be what you're not, because that means you're narrow and bland. And actually, if you're like SpongeBob and your content is genuine and different, it's often a good sign. It's okay to be different. You know who's not like this? Squidward. Don't be Squidward. SpongeBob knows how to make creative things happen with a box or with a gum wrapper or with nothing. Squidward just knows how to envy those who are actually authentic. Now, final category I want to touch on here. We've talked about feedback loops, and we've talked about how we can be authentic and lean into our strengths. Now I want to talk about how we can put this into practice through iterating with smart strategies. So build your iteration muscle play the long game, experiment. First, I think many of you guys are more jacked than you might realize, okay? This is the iteration muscle, and there are two. Okay, there's two muscles. What's going on? Well, the first muscle is the muscle of thought, mental spiraling, indecision, and stagnation. The other muscle is the muscle of swift action and practical iteration. This is the muscle of the sushi chef. Because you know what the sushi chef, easy for me to say, you know what the sushi chef says? Quick and decisive. When you're cutting the sushi, if you do it slowly, then the rice and the seaweed gets all split apart and it does not work. But you need a sharp knife, and you need that knife to be instant. Otherwise, you literally cannot cut the rice. Sure, the thinking muscle is very important, but it can also keep us in perfectionist mode. And if you're watching this video, I can guess that this muscle is already pretty strong for you. So with the quick iteration muscle, you will gain real data about what you like and what works, and you will get that data much quicker because it is grounded in concrete testing. You see this in big companies. They say, let's just try it and get the experiment done, because the quicker we can fail, the quicker we can actually get progress going and get results and see what actually works. Thomas Edison didn't make the light bulb by just thinking about it. He had to try hundreds and hundreds of times. And people take you more seriously. So even if you get things wrong, at least you're actually trying, taking action, and people respect that, and you can be proud of that. So lastly, let's touch on experimentation. Content creation is not a linear game. See, the growth curve usually looks like this, which means it takes a while and it mostly sucks. We can either reject that and try to prioritize quick sales and quick views. That leads to burnout and poor results overall. Or we can accept that this compound interest is how it works, and we can focus on how to enjoy the process. If we just focus on getting as many views and conversions as possible in the beginning, then what happens is a niche trap effect, where instead of creating content you sustainably enjoy, you box yourself into the same lane of content. This is a box. This limits the creative freedom you have, it limits the types of people you can help, and it limits the long-term growth of your channel. Being specific with who your audience is too early means you limit innovation. Like, if you really target like men ages 18 to 20 or something, and you only make content for them in the beginning when you're still getting a sense of what you like and what people want to see, then you limit all sorts of ideas and people that you can help. But at the other extreme, you do want to have some specificity, because if you just create videos of you playing an instrument in one video and then another video of you like traveling and it's a travel vlog, then that's chaos. You know, we need to balance. And so there's chaos and there's order. And this means dipping our feet in both sides, adding a little bit of chaos and experimentation, and then also having specificity and structure. For example, and I'm going to delete these so that we can be respectful of your time and just use one example instead of three. In some videos, you might have a specific audience you're speaking to. In other videos, you might speak a bit more broadly, for example. So, of course, you are getting a mix of both. Some videos you're specific, other videos you're a little more chaotic, and that's totally okay, because that leads to overall refinement and balance. So, what happened for me is when I stopped upgrading myself, I stayed comfortable, my videos stayed the same, and they were really dull. When you experiment, we grow in the process, we try different things, we learn different concepts, and different softwares even. So this helps us create content that helps us grow, and the content is an extension of ourselves. So when we grow in the process, the content also improves in the process. Lastly, I want to talk about what the long game is, because this also kind of riffs off of the experimentation that I'm talking about. So with this compound interest, it's far different from a session of scrolling on TikTok. Stimulation is not instant, and the progress can feel pointless, because when you're scrolling on TikTok, you want to feel good. Okay, just scroll, and in 2 seconds you have laughter. So this is not the same when you're building a compound interest business or relationship or YouTube channel. Stimulation is far from instant, because Instead of scrolling and waiting 2 seconds, you're putting in hours of work and waiting like months or years. So it's a little different. Do you want to play the long game? Indeed, it is full of sturdy, evergreen trees, though they take a while to grow. Even when your content feels chaotically everywhere and you have no idea what you're doing and you feel so confused, even when you're so proud of a video and yet you get nothing but crickets, even when you feel totally alone, even when you seem to still choke up on camera despite putting in thousands of reps, this is the long game. But I'm convinced that about half of what separates successful entrepreneurs from the non-successful ones is pure perseverance. Steve Jobs. And thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed. And if you like this sort of content, then let me know. If you want to connect with me, there is a link to my community in the description below. Thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful rest of your day.